educator, what I want to tell you, there isn't anyone who lived through who wouldn't remember and enjoy every minute. For example, Pesach. Before Pesach, the atmosphere right after Purim, the cleaning of the books of Sforim. That was my job, to take out, we had hundreds and hundreds of Sforim. Every sefer had to be dusted out. There shouldn't, God forbid, be one crumb left there. And then we put it out on the air, to air it out. And then we started matzahs baking. It so happened that in our house, my grandmother had an oven where they baked matzahs. So what that, they used to close off, clean up, and then all the women came, or the men came to bake matzahs. And it was so interesting to me when they were shouting, a matzah ready, so on. And it was something, you lived with it. You said, my God, how could it be that not everybody's Jewish? That's the part I could never understand. How is it that everybody isn't a Jew? I mean, it's so enjoyable. And then came the Seder. When my father sat down at the head table, we always had somebody guest. We always had guests. And the way he explained the Haggadah, he had a good musical voice. I didn't have any voice. And I wish I would know to sing his songs, but I don't remember them. And I tried desperately. So my children will remember. When I conduct the Seder, I try to make that. And everything, then we waited, I remember the child, we waited the door to open. And I could see that Eliyahu Hanavi comes in and drinks some of the wine. I can remember seeing the wine going down. And I'd say to myself, who needed better educators? Who needed all those seminars? It was such a life. And then go to shul and to say all this. Or when it came Sukkot. Sukkot, then we had a sort of, have a built-in sukkah. What mean a built-in sukkah? We had a veranda there which could be closed from 3 sides. And it was covered there. And my father, then I helped my father put up the schach, the covering. It was such a pleasure. We were together. You know, our life was sort of like one. He was the older person, I was the younger person. I wasn't a child. I was a small Jew. He was a big Jew. I was a small Jew. And to putting up the schach and then begging him, I want to sleep with you because it's very cold. He slept in the sukkah. I wanted to sleep with him in the sukkah. So he always said, no, when you'll be younger. Then as a treat, he let me sleep, although I was freezing there. Yet I was enjoying every minute of it. It was so beautiful. Every holiday, when we got by an esrog, how we looked at the esrog. He taught me, you see, this is called a hodor. This is not called a hodor. And not everybody owned an esrog, so people used to come to us to bench the esrog. Or a Purim. Here, Purim, okay, we go to shul and yeah. But there, Purim was in the street. And everybody was happy. And the Megillah line. I remember even as a child, I knew how they had to line the Megillah. Every Yom Tov, Yom Kippur, everything was so meaningful, so it had a life of beauty. I just want to mention one thing also that I didn't mention. My father was a Chassid. He was a Pashtuner Chassid. Pashtuner Chassid was a descendant of Zedechov. He used
descendant
to
of?
Zedechov. That's a sect, like. And he used to come, those villages around, about 6 or 7 villages, he had followers, about 200 or 300 followers. So once a year he came to us, and he had the honor and the privilege that he stayed by us. And he stayed in that room that I told you from the beginning how it looked. And his name was Reb Lazer, what's his name? Reb Lazerl, that's how we called him. And we all believe that he can perform miracles. And I remember the last time he was there, it was in 1938. In 1938, I remember this is the first time we had sort of an alert. That was when Hitler gave the ultimatum to Czechoslovakia, and Czechoslovakia mobilized and was ready to go to war. And the Rebbe was davening in the shul, and it looked like some of the Jews were also part in the Czech army, so they were called in to the army. So they went to ask him, a Shaila, that they can go on Shabbos, because this happened on a Shabbos. And I understand the Rebbe misunderstood it. He thought that they mean him, that he has to go. So he says, well, if it's if I have to, I have to. But he didn't, you know, he says, I'd rather not. And what I want to bring out, the Rebbe stayed by Yatz. And I remember when from Yatz to the shul was a walk of 10 minutes. And those 200 or 300 people had room by the families, although everybody lived in a small little room, yet everybody had room where to stay. And we all came together, and we walked with the Rebbe together from our home to the shul. And we were dancing in front of him and singing Mein Olam Haba. And a lot of Jews, and when the check even, I remember a lot of the policemen coming out looking at us. I don't know what they thought of us. They probably thought that we are nuts. What are we jumping there of a person who has a streimel, and we all shouting like you see here, lahavdul. Lahavdul means a separation between a rock star and the Rebbe. But we felt such elevation, such we were feeling like Superman. And we didn't care if somebody left. And I remember as a child, I looked at him and I said, look what you're missing. Look what you're missing. You don't have that. And this is the beauty that was able to be projected there.
What are some of your favorite possessions that you remember?
Well, I don't remember exactly what possession, because we didn't have a lot of toys. We had a ball and played around with ball. But I do remember after the war broke out. The war broke out September 1st, and September 2nd or 3rd, the Polish army...
Or 39.
In 39, yeah. The Polish army was running, was totally in disarray, and many Jews of the army crossed. We were right at the border with the Polish army. The Bristol was right by the border there. So they crossed into Bristol, and they had bicycles to sell. And my father bought a bicycle, beautiful bicycle, and I was so happy with this bicycle. Of course, it lasted only 24 hours until the order came that everything has to be handed back. I remember this was the most difficult thing for me that a child to part with. That's the only possession I remember at that time.
What are the first memories you have of anti-Jewish laws?
Okay, now, as I said, we had pretty good life until 38 when we got the first warning about the mobilization. Then we knew that something is coming. We knew the ultimatums. We also knew the plan that Czechoslovakia would be chopped away, Czech, Sudetenland and Czechoslovakia will become German, Slovaks will be independent, and the Carpathen will go to the Hungarians. First they promised them their own country, and then they started to all different type of propaganda. So, in the end, I think it was in 39, I think, or 30, in the end of 38 or 39, then finally it happened. 38, first it happened in the Sudeten. Hitler occupied the Sudeten. That after München, the whole thing, I'm not going to go into the history of München. And the Hungarians came into us. And we didn't know what to expect. We heard rumors that sometimes they pick up people and they disappear. But we didn't know what to expect.
They came into Bristol.
Yeah, that's what we heard rumors. Don't forget, there were not too many radios. There was a paper here and there. But we knew everything what's happening. We knew all the news what's happening. So that day when the Hungarians came in, we were pretty scared, but we didn't know. I myself as a child remember I didn't know to be scared, because until now, as I said, the policemen and all these were our friends, and I was never afraid. I didn't have to greet them, and I didn't have to be afraid of them.
What do you remember of the Hungarians coming in?
Okay, so they marched in, and the first time I saw the uniform, they had such frightening uniforms with kokoshes, they had feathers in their head, with bayonets, such shiny bayonets on that. Then, the first day, and then suddenly in the middle of the night, I heard a knock on the door. When we opened the door, it was not a plain knock, but very heavy, with boots knocking on the door. When we opened the door, there stood those two policemen with those feathers, with the bayonets, and told my father, "You have 5 minutes to get dressed and come with us." My mother got hysterical. She spoke a perfect Hungarian. She started to ask, "Where are you taking him?" They didn't answer. We were 3 children then. We all jumped out of the bed. We said, "Daddy, don't leave us." "No." And yeah, we had to leave. My mother started to think, what am I going to do? What am I going to do now? What can I do? What's going to happen? What's going to do? So we remembered that one of our friends was the priest. The priest of it's an interesting thing, they were Greek Catholics, and the priest serviced the Ukrainian population, but he himself was Hungarian, or at least he spoke Hungarian, and that's how they knew my mother. So my mother said, "I have to run to the priest," which is a 10 minutes, 15 minutes walk from us where we live. But you have to remember there was pitch dark outside. There's a village, there was no light, totally dark. And we said, "Where are you going to go in the dark?" She said, "I have to go, I have to do something. Maybe he can help us." And she left. Now, there we are, suddenly 3 children, the oldest 10 years, charge. Now we don't have a father, now we don't have a mother. We didn't know what's happening. Time ticked away very slowly. He cried, loud, louder and louder, until he got scared of our own cry. And he said, "Okay." It must have been 2 hours when my mother came back. She said that finally, the priest first, he said, "Well, am I going to go in the night? Let's wait till the morning." Mama said, no, because she heard the rumors before that when the Hungarian police picks up somebody, they just take them out and shoot them. So he agreed to go at 2 o'clock at night to see what he can do. Then my mother said, "Listen, there's nothing we can do. Let's say to him." all said to him. Those minutes ticked away very slowly, and hours and hours. About 5 o'clock in the morning, my father appears. He was white like ash. All he did, hugged us all.
You what, sorry?
Hugged us. Anyhow, we found out why they picked him up. It's because, as I said, my father was a very prominent person. And when Masaryk was the president of Czechoslovakia, he was a very, very good person, really Ohev Yisrael. He passed away in 1937. It seems like that time they had a book out that every prominent person wrote in their name, sort of condolences, and my father was one of them. And when they went through their name, they found my father's name, so they accused him of being a Czech spy, and they really wanted to shoot him. But God helped us. Now, he was back. So that was our first introduction to oppression and to what is waiting for us. And then my mother said, now the time comes, we must move out of this village. Because here we are marked people. They know us, you are well known. In the meantime, my father also got a call to go into the army, to the Hungarian army. The Hungarian army did not allow Jews to wear weapons. So what they did is they put them to work, and they called it Munkatabor, which means work battalions. So the first time my father, obviously had connections, thought his connections are still valid. So he went up and he thought he fixed it, and he paid a lot of money. But it looks, after a few weeks, again there came another call. He must come and present himself to the army headquarters where he will be assigned. So my mother said, "Now, okay, you're going away. I think we have to move. Let's move." My grandmother refused. But she said, "Kinderlach, I want you to go because I can see here you're all marked, but I have to stay here. I'm an old lady. Nobody will touch me, but you must move." So and we had a great-grandfather, my great-grandfather, my mother's grandfather was a Munkach. We contacted them, they got us a apartment, and that's when we moved to Munkach. That's where my second half of my story starts in Munkach.
So when is this now? What year?
We are at the end of 39, or 40, yeah, at the end of 39, I think.
What language did you speak at home?
Yiddish. But I spoke a good Czech. My mother spoke a perfect Hungarian. I did not speak Hungarian. My father spoke a perfect Czech, Yiddish. So that's how our move came about. Now, started to come decree after decree from the Hungarians. My second encounter with the
What kind of decrees?
that you're not allowed to own this and you're not allowed to do that. Mainly it started to deprive us of the livelihood. You're not allowed to own business. You can't travel free. You have to have this document and this document. And luckily, we had many documents, and I still remember one decree which said if you can't prove that you're a citizen, then you have to leave. Leave where? They put you on the other side of the Polish border, which was by that time occupied already by the Germans, to the Dniester. Dniester was so they gathered together a lot of Jews who couldn't prove, just gathered them together and put them across the street, across the border. Many died there from hunger, what we heard afterwards. Some tried to come back, smuggle themselves back. But this picture, I saw this picture now in front of me, how the Jews, how one of them was hiding. As a matter of fact, that person that I have in mind now has a brother here in Toronto now. I saw him when the police picked him up. He was trying to hide in the mountain. The way they marched him down and hitting, marching, hitting. And then again, just putting his clothing and across the border, go, not caring. I still mind-boggling. We came across without a home, without where to eat, where to sleep, we are worried about homelessness now, and we should be worried, and we are worried. Each time when I see a homeless person, I go to pieces. But I can imagine people with children, carrying their small children, being put across the border to nowhere, and go, without food, without money, without anything. So these are the type of laws that came into to be. Then we moved to Munkach, and when I went out first on the street, I passed by two policemen, and I didn't take off my hat to greet them. So they called me back. They said something to me in Hungarian, which I didn't know, and I got a good 2 slaps in the face, which later on I understand because I didn't take off my hat. And I was never used to that because I said the Czech, we had a all different relation with them. Right then and there I decided I am going to learn Hungarian. I remember I came home, I took a newspaper and a dictionary and I started to learn. That's how I learned Hungarian. And then of course came other rules, but mainly what I remember is that from being without worries from what to live next, we started now to be worried, where is our living coming from? My father was by that time in the army. In the army, I mean again in Munkatabor, which means in the work battalion. My grandmother more or less had what to live because she had her own garden. Didn't have, but my mother we had to pay rent this time now because we didn't own our home now. We had an apartment. And I remember that look of my mother. How am I going to protect you? How am I going to provide for you? Never forget that. Never forget that worry in her face. Never about herself. Here's a lady who used to dress the most beautifully, and she never worried what am I going to wear, but what are my children going to wear? What is he going to have? And so on. This was her worries right now. And it is not a small worry when you are deprived of the way of life that you used to be. And you don't know why. Why was it happening to you? You see, one comes, there is in the Torah there where it says sometimes when Hashem says, if you will not listen to us, there will come certain curses on you. And one of the curses, I remember, occurred to me. In the evening he will say, I wish it would be the morning. In the morning he will say, I wish it would be the evening. And this is exactly what it was. In the evening we didn't know what the morning will bring. In the morning we didn't know what the evening will bring. So these are the types of things that were going on till 44.
Were you able to come and go?
Yes, but very limited. You had to have certain, if I remember correctly, you had to have certain permissions or certain identifications which was not easy to get. I traveled very often to see my grandmother, to Bristol because our ties were very close. Each time she saw me, I knew I'd bring her. I didn't know at that time, that's a very short time to live. But I felt that she's feeling much better. And when I say I don't mean only myself, I mean my sister. My mother sometimes went. But coming there, again, whenever we saw a policeman, I was hiding because I didn't know whether I was supposed to be there or not supposed to be there. In the end, I was not supposed to be there because I was too close to the border. But my grandmother said, don't worry, I'll protect you. So that was the life. It wasn't easy. We used to be spat at. Our heads to be taken off and thrown away. All those little things. All those little, that you weren't used to it, and they're so terrible. They're so degrading, so frightening, especially when you're young and you're about to grow up and you're supposed to develop. You're supposed to feel secure, and the insecurity there was so great. I was worried for my parents and for my younger children. She was worried for the rest of us, and it wasn't easy. It was very hard.
Did you have to wear a yellow star?
That came later, yes. That came later when the Germans came in. You had to wear a yellow star.
When did they come in?
The Germans officially took over in 44. In 44, March, they marched in. I want to go back a little bit to my father and to my father when he was in the army. He was in Košice. Then we got a letter from him that he's going to Ukraine. And he's passing by Munkac, and we should meet him at the station. We all went out to the station. We saw him dressed only with a uniform of only a hat from a uniform. The rest was civilian clothes. And he said, I'm going to the unknown. I don't know where I'm going. He called me aside. He said, you're the oldest. Try to look after your children, your mother. And the train slowly left. I'll never forget his look. Like he would know he would never see us again. And what is terrible is that I know where he was. He was in Russia, the Russian front. They took him, the Hungarians took him to the Russian front where the Germans were fighting. And you all heard of the Russian winters. They weren't dressed properly. And I always wonder how he suffered. Sure, they deserve it. He wasn't even brought. He wasn't even buried according to Jewish law. He was my mother. Such a good person, such an intelligent person. Never harmed anybody. Only did good. But he must have suffered. Oh, what he must have suffered. For nothing. It's cruel, cruel world.
Where were your brothers and sister in this time?
Okay, this happened when he was, this episode what happened in 42. So we were still in Munkac. At that time we went back to our apartment. And we had to worry, as I said, from day-to-day life, but yet my mother made sure that I went to learn every day. My sister went to learn, my little brother. And by that time, which my father was still managed to see his 1-year-old child. And that's how life went on till 44 in March, the Germans marched in.
December 13th, 1995. Rabbi Adler, how were you able to go on learning?
Definitely. We learned in different ways. Every morning, after the davening and after breakfast, we went into yeshiva, the close, and we learned in a group. We studied, I would say for that age, for my age group, I studied with older boys, and we studied Gemara, and I still managed to learn in Munkac there was a gymnasium, the Hebrew gymnasium. A private teacher, a private professor from there, taught us Hebrew. We have about 4 or 5 of us. And he taught us the whole curriculum, what they learned in the gymnasium. We were able to learn with him. My sister learned separately, and the younger brothers went to Cheder to learn. Actually, only one brother, the younger, stayed home most of the time because he was still very young. And what I want to stress is we always talk now, and it's interesting. I mean, I'm in education, and I see children coming